I bet you think you know the Griffin family, but I'm here to tell you probably don't. But that's okay, because in this video, I'm going to go through the entire Griffin family tree. What's up, guys? I know it's been a couple weeks. I've been kind of busy with my real job, and that kind of sucked, but it is what it is. So if you guys would like to help me, though, and make this my real job, you can do so by hitting that subscribe button, and let's go ahead and get into the video. So one quick thing, I'm not going to go through all of Peter's ancestors. That's going to have to be another video since there's kind of just so many. Start with the oldest generation of the family is going to be Carter's grandmother, Estrella. And as far as I can tell, we don't actually know who Carter's parents were, but let me know in the comments if I just couldn't figure it out. But his father did have a sister, Marguerite. But then on his wife's side, we have Babs's grandmother, Grandma Hebrewberg, and weirdly, we also don't know her husband or actually her real name. That's just kind of what they refer to her as. Then going into the next generation, we have Carter, his brother Jerry, and his sisters Clara and Lil. And he is married to Barbara, or Babs, who, as far as I can tell, didn't have any siblings, but once again, let me know if I'm wrong. But clearly from there, we get Lois, her sister Carol, her brother Patrick, and their sister Kate. Now, let's backtrack a little bit and look at Peter's side of the family. Though we don't know his name, we know that his adopted great-grandfather invented basketball, and in the inverse of Lois' side of the family, we actually don't know who his wife is. And we don't actually know any of his grandparents, but we do know that his mother, Thelma, his father, Francis, and his biological father, Mickey. And from whatever combination of these three comes Peter, his sister Karen, his hairless twin brother, his evil brother Thaddeus, Chip, Peter's Siamese twin that was on his neck, and his Brosner. The nowhere gray area is Retep, since he is technically an evil clone of Peter, regenerating from a severed hand. It technically qualifies him as an offspring, but also as his parents' son. So, I don't know there. But finally, here's where I'm going to put Biscuit, Brian's mother. Also, Brian has many siblings in his litter, but I think we can make that a video, so for now, let's just leave it here. Let's round off this generation. There is Mayor Adam West, Karen's husband, or at least the last of many, and RIP Adam West. Marion, Patrick's possibly imaginary but maybe just invisible wife, as well as Peter's second family's husband and his basement family's version of Lois. And Brian has never actually stayed married, and I believe, as of recording this video, is still single, so roast me in the comments. But now we're going to go ahead and move on to the kids, and here's where things are going to get kind of interesting. Starting with Meg, who is Lois's daughter, her father being a man actually named Stan Thompson, and Chris may actually not be related by blood to Peter either. See, according to Lois, Chris was actually stolen from a Dutch family and then adopted by the Griffins, with this happening when he was old enough to have learned to speak and is actually bilingual, with at a minimum Lois having to learn Dutch in order to speak to him. And we actually see his other family having a Dutch version of Family Guy, where we see that Chris also has a brother and a sister. But this actually directly conflicts with the fact that we see a picture of him directly after he was born, with Lois giving birth to him. As well as we find out that he had a brother who was actually stillborn named Timos. And I hope to God Chris didn't squish his brother in the womb, if that's what they're trying to imply there. So, overlooking the fact that this is clearly just a retcon, my theory is that the baby we see in the photo was actually the unnamed kid that she has left trapped in a movie theater that Chris doesn't know about and whose name we don't know. Then, seeing the Dutch family, Lois and Peter kidnap Chris, bring him back to America, adopt him, brainwash him into thinking his name is Chris, and eventually he forgets he was actually Dutch. So the kid in the chair might have been the first Chris and the brother of Timos, and Chris is just lucky he managed to escape the chair. Or there's also the theory that post-cancellation the series is actually in a separate universe, but that's another video. Also, as I've done, Chris is potentially a robot, so none of this matters anyway. I don't know, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Then there's Stewie, who is definitely Peter and Lois' son. We see the night he was conceived, with a whole episode being dedicated to it. But did you know that Stewie is actually a triplet, with him having a funny fat brother that we've only seen once, and his brother Dave being stillborn. But those two are definitely the lucky ones to be alive, since Meg actually drowned their sister, as well as Peter shaking Peter Jr. to death. And speaking of Peter, he actually has a few kids of his own that aren't related to Lois. See, Peter has donated sperm on more than one occasion, thus he actually has had a bunch of children through his donation, with a couple of named ones being Larry, who almost ends in a relationship with Lois, and Bertram, Stewie's archenemy, who actually dies in the past. Peter also has 3 stepchildren with his husband, Mr. Handelman, 2 sons and a daughter, as well as 2 more sons and a daughter in his basement family. But to round off the kids, this is where I'm finally going to go ahead and put Brian, who's off over here in the corner. And we're actually back to the weird gray area with Sreetep, since Stewie has had a couple of clones with Evil and Bitch Stewie, as well as Brian having Bitch Brian. But finally, to close out the generation, Lois's sister Carol has a son who we literally have not seen or heard about since the day he was born, so he is probably with his father. And finally, we can get to the final generation that we know about, with Brian and Stewie having several dog-human hybrids, some of which hopefully got adopted by living homes, but they also may not have made it very long. And Brian also has a son named Dylan. And then Meg has a baby and she keeps in a box in her locker at school. It's also kind of implied that she has had several other children, but she has abortions and things like that, so it's never really set in stone as to just how many kids she's had, but this is the only one we know for sure we've seen living. And hopefully is still living. Meg can get kind of crazy at times. That is it. That is every member of the Griffin family, or at least the 5 generations we can confirm. And please remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next Family Guy video, specifically for Peter's ancestors, which may at this point not be the next video because, you know, life gets in the way. But also, Peter is kind of weird because most of his ancestors, as far as the Griffins go, is actually his adopted family. So the fact they all look like him is just the stories that he tells. But let me know in the comments down below if there's anything that I missed or got wrong on this family tree. I also kind of left out the Lady Redbush thing with Lois. That's more of a story. I don't know if I could have confirmed that or not. But like I said, roast me in the comments. And then I will read them and see you guys in the next video.